as your mother. So did you bring anybody else with you? Come a little closer so you're in the light.
Another person who helped make this movie is Danny Madden, who did the sound design. He's sitting up in front. I'm going to let him chill there because he's very chill, and if somebody has a sound design question, he will be happy to jump up and answer that question.
Or I'll just stay on the couch.
If you can get him off the couch.
Okay, we'll
Please
try. I don't even know where to start. Your mind is just incredible, but your imagination, and how did you even come with this concept? And it's kind of a genre that's kind of bending and going all over the place, and yeah, tell me about how this whole thing happened in your brain.
The movie really comes from the process, which is how I have been making movies for the last few years. I didn't go to film school. I studied computer science, and what I realized is I sort of create these systems in my life and in my filmmaking. In my life, it's like I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. I wear the same clothes. Like, there's all these like routines that happen. Like in the filmmaking, there's also sort of a set of like almost like a program that I've written for how a movie gets made. Within that, there is like the freedom of creativity, but it starts with a location. The location for this movie being this house that my friend and collaborator, Callie Hernandez, who's also the actor who plays Camille, he's also a producer and a writer on the movie, but she had been renting this house in the Berkshires with the explicit purpose of seeing how many indie films she could make in 1 year. Super cool. She ended up making 2 features, 2 shorts. This is one of the features. And so I went to visit her with the idea being like, we're gonna make a movie. We had made movies before. And like, what is that movie gonna be? And just while hanging out with her there, kind of had a little bit of, I didn't get bit by a tick, thankfully, but I had sort of the experience Yvonne had where she arrives and she goes on this beautiful walk through this field of tall grass. I went on a walk through that exact field, got back to this house, and then Callie said, okay, time for the tick check. And a tick check, if you don't know, is where you like basically take off all your clothes and look for poppy seed sized ticks everywhere and hope that you find them, because if you don't, you might end up with life-altering disease. And so I did the tick check. I didn't find anything, but that was an intense moment. And the next morning I was sitting on the back porch that you see in this movie, and I was looking out at the beautiful field and the crisp morning air and thinking, oh, it'd be so nice to go on a walk. And I chose not to. And I realized it was because of this fear of these ticks. And I thought that's an interesting thing to kind of explore. So I brought that kind of like just seed of an inspiration to these 4 actor collaborators. Again, this is like the process that I do. And I bring it to them, I describe essentially what I just said to you, and then we have a conversation about what does that make them think of, what kind of characters have they been playing, have they not been playing, what things would they want to do. So very collaboratively, collectively, we start to create a little bit of an idea of a world, of a story, of some like chess pieces almost, like we're setting the board for like a game we're gonna play. And then I make an outline of half the movie. Again, this is just like describing the process to be like, how does this movie come to be? So like, I make an outline of half of the movie, and we go to the location and we start shooting just with half of an outline. We don't know how the movie's gonna end. We haven't even written lines yet. And then we shoot in order each day. Like the day before, we're writing the dialogue of the scenes that we're gonna shoot the next day. We shoot that. The next morning, we kind of like rinse and repeat. And so it's this process of sort of like closing doors and then like observing what doors are still open as you continue like to move your way through the story. Yeah. And so we didn't go there knowing that she was gonna get pregnant and give birth to, tick eggs. Yeah. That was like a discovery as we got halfway through that we're like, what's gonna happen next? And then you arrive at these surprising ideas that are surprising both to us, to the filmmaker, and then presumably potentially to the audience as well. But I do think part of that is just built into the fact that we also don't know where the movie is going, and we're excited by that fact.
And so was there anything that ever happened that kind of, oh gosh, that didn't work, it's not fitting, or did you just like accept it all and let's go with it?
You're trying to like really rapidly experience that of like what's not fitting, so which is like a very common thing of any creative probably like of almost any process, but certainly of any creative process, whether you have a script or not, you write things down, you start to shoot a scene, and something about this scene's not working, this performance isn't working, and you're trying to quickly analyze what's working about it or not, and then you adjust and hopefully keep moving forward with like a good feeling, a feeling that like this is working. It's just sort of like with this, it's this other kind of, there's no safety net to it because there's nothing to fall back on because you didn't come with any like preparation for it. So like within this movie, like yes, we're doing a scene and we're like, even the very first scene, basically the first like real scene of the movie where they're all sitting around the dinner table having this conversation, like we wrote those lines. We're like, okay, this is kind of a fun conversation of people within this kind of like world of health and rural escaping the city type, people who might do that. And we did the scene almost like in a normal way. And for me, I was just like, I'm not that interested. Like this is not that interesting to me. This is just people saying some words that we chose to say. And I had the idea just because it was intuitively, like instinctually, maybe this would make it more interesting. I was like, what if you did it slower? And then they did it, and I was like, well, that was a little more interesting. I was like, what if you did it even slower? And then they did it again. I was like, right. What if you did it as slow as you can? And then they did it, and we were like, I don't know what that is, but that was exciting to us. So that's, again, like this example of being like, as you're moving forward, it's like it's kind of not working, and you're just trying to quickly shift until it gets to a place that at least feels, to us, interesting, exciting, compelling, I don't know, something maybe we haven't seen before, something that we're excited to keep seeing more of. And then you like commit to it, do it, and then you step forward and you're like, okay, that has happened now. What happens next? Like what happens after that has happened? Because that's not changing.
And so how did you combine the visual tone with what you were creating as a collaboration?
I shoot the movies myself. I've been making videos since I was 15. Also, like the whole process, the way of making this is sort of trying to make movies as an adult, but the way I would when I was 15, which is like you just get together with your friends and a camera and you start like trying to make stuff up. And I also edit the movie, so just like the process of shooting and editing lots of stuff, like my own things, other people's things, is that I've just like refined my own things that I like. And so like I'm just shooting the way I want to shoot it, the way I know I'm going to be editing it. But then it's also very much responding to the actual environment of like what's there. So like when I got to this house, I'm walking through the house. This is just, again, normal for like any filmmaking where you're doing like a location scout, but like I'm merging that with the actual conception of the movie. So like we get into that house and I'm like, what rooms do I like? What walls do I like? What hallways do I like or not like? And it's like, you don't see the fridge in this movie. It's like, because I don't want to see that fridge in my movie. So like I don't conceive scenes. If that house had like an amazing antique fridge, like we would have done a whole 4-minute scene about the fridge where she's just like pulling food out and like who knows what's in that fridge. But this house did not have a good fridge. What this house had to me was a bunch of like cool old windows and like that one weird angled window. So I'm like, as I'm conceiving the movie, it's like, right, okay, it's a person inside. The person's got bit by a tick. The person's kind of sick. The person's kind of like in a hospital. The person's inside, outside. The person's looking out through the windows. All of those thoughts are like informing the visual aesthetic, which you could do a year in advance through like research and lookbooks and preparation, but I'm just like in the moment being like, what right now is inspiring me?
Yeah, I mean, they were almost like art pieces that you've seen like, from the history of museums, and I don't know, it was really visually beautiful. And then mixing the sound. Talk a little bit about that, how you came.
I'm going to say a thing about Danny, and I am going to make you come up here and talk a little bit. So Danny is a filmmaker. I co-edit his movies with him, and he's just one of my favorite collaborators and a person who I've learned so much from. He is an interesting filmmaker in that like one of his paths through was through a lot of animation. And when you do animation, you have to like do so much sound work because you're building up from everything from nothing. And so like he has that mind and set of experiences that he brings to the film making. And so when I was helping him edit one of his movies, I was seeing how much stuff he was doing with sound and just like how important that can be, which is sort of obvious, but like not obvious enough. Like that it like is a crucial thing that can just like unlock so much storytelling within a movie.
Oh yeah.
And so that's why I'm grateful to have him as a collaborator.
Come on up.
And talk specifically about this movie sound.
Yeah. And then come a little closer so you guys are all in the
So
light.
this is the fourth movie I've sound designed that you've directed. And what I like about Pete's movies is there's a lot of space between. There's a lot of just like slow pans and like beautiful. Oh, what's going on?
Take your hand down.
Oh, okay.
I want to see your face. Yeah, I want to see your pretty face.
And so there's a lot of space. There's a lot of like time to like do some things that will tell the story with sound, So particularly in this one, when you have a little bit of like a genre thing, and you can get a little like I don't know, exploratory with what the sound is doing, and I don't know, I have a lot of fun with it. And like Bette said, we've been working together for a long time, so we've established a sort of foundation of trust too. So this movie was like, Pete picture locks it, and then he hands me just like an MP4 file, and then goes out of town for a week, and I'm just like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna fill it with whatever like whims kind of come. We did like a small spotting session, but basically just like filled it with like, I don't know, this would be crazy, but try and like approach each scene similar to how they like wrote each scene, like just kind of almost go chronologically and be like, oh, wouldn't it be crazy if this scene there was like some chattering that hit, and you're like, ooh, maybe the chattering should come back later when she's got the tick on her mind, and that's, you know, and then you get to play and throw some funky sounds in there, and you know, be a little suggestive about things.
Yeah, amazing. You want to?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was feeling some really hardcore like 60s, 70s Ira Levin vibes, like Stepford Wives, Rosemary's Baby, like in a lot of different areas. I'm just curious about like inspirations, influences, and any particular artists.
The way I do like references and influences is very subconscious. I'm not actively pointing to things when we're making, which maybe is frustrating to collaborators, but I'm more excited by being like, what happens by accident almost. Yes, I've seen Rosemary's Baby. Yes, I love it. I don't know who Ira Levin is. And I haven't actually seen Stepford Wives, but we've seen so many things that are derivative of it that it's like, that's in the ether of just
He wrote both
filmmaking.
of those books,
Okay.
so that's why I used
Cool.
it.
Yeah, great, cool. I've learned. The thing that we did talk about when we first started was Bergman.
Yeah.
And there's this movie that I actually haven't watched all of, but I watched like the first 10 minutes of, which is called Cries and Whispers. And it's like this movie, it's in a house, it's sort of this like chamber drama thing. There's a person who has cancer, who's dying of cancer, and is like really sick. And it's like that was one of like the references that we were talking about when we started. And so, and also like there's always the evolution of these films because you don't know what the whole movie is yet. But we like started thinking like, okay, we're gonna make like a Bergman movie, I guess. And like as it's going, and like now she's getting bit by a tick, now there's like a tick man in the woods or whatever. We're like, okay, this movie's starting to give midnight. Like it's giving like a midnight movie thing now. And then we got excited by the idea that we're making like Bergman Midnight. Because we felt like, I don't know if I've seen like a Bergman Midnight movie. Is that what it is? I don't know. But like this is sort of where our heads were at as we were making it. And mostly just trying to be kids, like playing. Obviously like Kubrick, Coen Brothers, Kurosawa, Ozu. You know, the people who are great filmmakers are all the inspirations that are all in like the ether of, you know, my DNA. Next?
Yeah, next.
There's some movement back there.
No, I had a question.
Just shy that we can't see
Sound
anything.
designer.
Oh, that's me.
About the guitar in the scene where she's looking at the bug demon in the forest. I thought it was really cool. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on it.
So the fun thing about this movie is that the score and the sound design are really like what's what, and it's not always entirely clear. They're also both like kind of riffing on insect sounds and all that kind of stuff. So like the guitar there is our composer Isabella Summers, who again is just like pulling from the same pool of ideas that like the movie, the process of shooting it had already sort of presented, which is like this world of genre-ish and bugs and being afraid of the dark. So I feel like that just came from, you know, her riffing within that realm.
And then I get to sort of like try and harmonize with that in a way of like what kind of little like chattery sounds can like support that, or sort of like, I don't know, highlight it in a way. And it's a constant dialogue, which is very fun and collaborative.
I'll just talk to you later about it. But my question was, I'm curious, like, how much of this process is affected by post? Like, do you is it honored through the editing process, or do you shift it very radically in post?
Certainly, editing and post-production is part of filmmaking, is part of the like movie making experience, for like what a finished thing ends up being. And yes, it is honored throughout the post, in that like while I'm editing it, I'm still learning what is this movie. Even things about like the tone of it. It's like, you know, I could have put not creepy sounds there. Like, what would that have done? I don't know. It meant something different. But like, so as I'm making it, kind of discovering it, because of how sort of obsessed with efficiency I am, and just we're shooting this thing in 2 weeks. I'm like shooting the edit. I'm not shooting coverage. I'm the editor, and like these are the 3 shots. This is where the edit point is. So I'm like, there's not anything extra really. So like really puts me in a box for what you can do. But there are a bazillion tricks within editing that you can do. And things like the Baz Luhrmann quote at the beginning, and then like the Strictly Ballroom reference VO at the end. That's all just post idea of being like, why did we have her speak with a New Zealand accent? Like, I don't really remember, but like, it is about fear. And then I'm like Googling fear, and then this quote comes up that says like, life lived in fear is a life half lived. I'm like, oh right, that's such like an iconic quote. And you click on it, it's like, Baz Luhrmann? Like, I thought that would have been like Socrates or something. And like that made me laugh. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if the movie starts with that? That's funny. And then you're like, okay, then starting with that, oh, I need to write this voiceover thing here to kind of like explain stuff that isn't entirely clear. I can write a line in there that throws it back to the beginning and it makes you all think it was all intentional, which is really like the challenge of any like storytelling, whether you're doing it in the process or just like you're writing a movie like normal. It's like trick everyone into thinking you know what you're doing.
Just real quick, I don't think you said how long you guys shot for. I think that's a good...
Shot for 2 weeks.
And, sorry, so do you shoot all the exteriors in that 2 weeks also, or do you like do that separately?
Everything that was shot, except for like some close-ups of like the little tick eggs, which we shot like a month before the premiere, maybe even less than that. Just like in his driveway, in like a little cereal bowl. But all the footage is like there. And even like the exterior shots, I think were some of the first things I shot before we even knew what the movie was. And I'm just like, I got here a few days early. I'm anxious to just be shooting something. I'm inspired by these trees. I don't really know fully what's going to be happening, but I'm just trying to bank footage, bank shots that are nice that might come in handy later. And then that becomes like the opening, sequence of the movie.
What is happening now? Have you got a sales agent? Where are we at?
The movie premiered at South by Southwest, which is a wonderful festival to premiere at.
Not as good as ours, though.
Not as good as yours. And it has a sales agent. The world of film and independent film and all film is challenged. So like, there's a Kelly Reichardt anecdote where she's talking about her filmmaking career, and she talks about in the beginning it was really hard to get a movie made, but really kind of easy to get it distributed because the challenge was, can you even make one? And now just because of the way the world has gone with content generation, it's like actually not that hard to make the movie, and the hard thing is to get people to see it, get it to distribute. So that's just the nature of the world that we're currently living in. So there are sales agents, they're trying to sell it all around the world. We'll see. But we already won because we got to have fun making it. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mammoth Film Festival and for having me.